seem to have misplaced my water. Uh, Hi, everyone. Today is Saturday, November 2nd, 2024. I'm coming to you actually from a hotel in San Diego. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this is a talk I host twice a week to discuss my experiences on the path of soul transcendence. I offer this work with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds a mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness that allows us to do the work that we're doing here today. This talk is brought to you by the movement of spiritual inner awareness. We're going to start the call off by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. And then we're going to chant three Anai hues. Hu is an ancient name for God, and Anai invokes a quality of empathy and compassion. And then I'm going to play a video clip of my teacher, John Roger. And then I'm going to do a reading of Saint Simeon, the new theologian. And then we can talk about whatever you would like. So, with that, Ron Holnick, please call us forward into the light.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Lord God of all creation, we come before you this morning with both joy in our hearts and an awareness of the special time that we live in. We send the light forward to the upcoming election in this country. And above all, for our election, to follow the ways of spirit to the best of our ability. And for this time together, Lord, we treasure your guidance and we say thank you. So be it.
We're held to the level spiritually of what we hold in our mind. We're held to the level spiritually because of what we hold in our mind. We get thought forms because we do not put in our mind what we want and the result we want from it. It's energy that goes out. It keeps moving out. Mental energy keeps moving out, and it moves out. Have you ever seen a burr that you walk through the woods and they're on your pants and your shoes and your socks, and then you pull them off? Thought forms have that type of a look to them. They go out there and they're just hooking onto whatever they can hook onto. So we look at our life and we say, I am today an accretion of everything that has happened to me up to this moment. Good or bad, right or wrong, blaming and not blaming, helping, not helping, whatever, this is it. But there can be a great deal of pain associated with this movement of energy that's got debris in it. Now, why haven't I talked about this before in all these years of talking about it? Because there's an easier way to do it. And that's to lift yourself above the field of action in the soul, contact the spiritual energy, the Holy Spirit, and let it flood and radiate down and disintegrate everything away from you.
All right. This is a reading of Saint Simeon, the theologian, who was a early Christian figure in the Eastern Orthodox tradition of mysticism from about 949 to 1022. And the term theologian was not considered academic. It was a high honor of an evangelist or a teacher at that time. So theologian wouldn't be an academic title. But anyway, I love what he shared. So this is a piece called "I Know That He Reveals Himself." I know that He reveals Himself. I sit alone apart from all the world and see before me Him who transcends the world. I see Him and He sees me. I love Him and I believe He loves me. I am nourished and satisfied only with His vision. United with Him, I go beyond heaven. All this I know beyond any doubt, but where my body is, I do not know. I know that He who is immovable descends. I know that He who is invisible appears to me. I know that He who transcends all creation takes me into Himself and hides me in His arms apart from all the world. And then I, small and mortal in this world, see the Creator of the world within me and know that I can never die because I am within all life and all life wells up in me. He is in my heart. He is in heaven. Both here and there, He reveals Himself to me in equal glory. All right. What would y'all like to talk about today? Lisa?
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Jeffrey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I don't see you anymore because you unraised your hand, I think.
Oh,
I was
I
trying to
did.
pin you. Yeah.
Sorry, let me raise it again.
Yeah, thanks. I'm good.
Sure. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Jeffrey. You're so good at bringing the peace, and I just wanted to ask for the light for the highest good for Victor and Michael and I. Um, that was really it. You're just so good at cleaning people inside, and I'm just experiencing a lot of overwhelm. And I just wanted to ask for the light, please. Thank you.
Light. I'm do you know one odd thing about overwhelm is it often depends on perspective. So I often go into overwhelm when I reference when I reference from the body, I reference from the ego. If I start saying I only have this much time or I only have this much energy, that I becomes the source of the overwhelm
Mhm.
because I've created a finite construct called I, and that finite construct can be overwhelmed. So there's a way in which our attitude and the way that we reference in the story of our life forms the limitations that we feel dictate how we will experience our life. I've found that for every level of overwhelm that I go, well, I've reached my limit. There's no much more. I can't take on one more thing. I can't do one more thing. And that may be true. It may be true that the I that was saying that can't take on one more thing, but the one that is the source of all things can take on more.
Mhm.
And that when I reference from that and simply put one foot in front of the other, I can look back at my year, at my life, or at my work and go, oh my God, how did I take on all that stuff? Well, I didn't. All I did was cooperate. So I find it the overwhelm and the emotional flooding that comes in when I start thinking intellectually is my mind's desire to make sense of all of it. If I tried to make sense of my life, I would probably get real frustrated and overwhelmed really quickly. But so I don't try to make sense of it. I just try to love it and cooperate with it because that's what I've been given to work with.
Mhm.
There, there's a lot. We're tested, right? Our karma tests us, and usually we're completing and releasing areas of our life that inevitably the thing that I avoided addressing when I was a teenager or kid, the one that I avoided addressing in my 20s and my 30s, now I'm going to have to address. So there's a kind of inevitability to the karma of things where the thing that we resist is usually an indicator of the thing that we have to work with. And in my case, it's often relationships, even. Oh, I never want to deal with that person. And then I get on a project with that person. So we make these declarations and we say, oh, I'm this type of person, they're that type of person, we're this type of people, we're this type of family. And that can sometimes get in the way of just rolling up your sleeves and going into the messiness and falling in love with the messiness of family and understanding that there's not a single minute that we can add to our day through sheer force of will and anxiety, not a single ounce of additional experience other than the experience that we are set to have, that our high self put in place just for us to complete the karma that we needed to complete. And we can judge it. It's like I look at karma like a big long musical playlist. And sometimes the playlist is going to play a really cheesy country song and I'm not going to like it. But then I have some choices, right? I can dance to it and have fun with it. Or I
Mhm.
can just sit going, I don't like country. Stop playing the country music. I just can't stand, And for all of you country fans, I apologize for that. But inevitably, we're going to need to walk through it. So the heaviness comes in when we think that it should be something other than it is, and we attempt to understand it and measure it and control it with the mind. The lightness comes in when we start laughing about it, going, wow, this was a ridiculous day. And you kind of go back through and you go, well, first this thing broke in the house, then this person yelled, then this person misplaced the thing, and you kind of, it's like a comedy of errors. It's like slapstick comedy, like the Three Stooges. And in that laughter, we can release a lot of that heaviness and a lot of that energy. Now, it's easy for me to say when you're in it, it's like we're so invested with who we are and who we think we are in relation to the family. Sometimes it's like we think, oh, I can't just throw a tantrum and cry on the floor and do a whole show for the family because I'm the mom and moms don't do that and moms have to be secure and moms have to be this. but that might be very healing for them just to see you lose it a little bit. I think that's okay too. I think we talked about this before, but I try not to be irresponsible in my expression with my son, but I am aware that if I give myself permission to be human in front of my son, he's going to learn that being human is okay.
Mm.
I'm also going to take responsibility and go, yeah, I raised my voice. I don't like raising my voice, and I don't like when it upsets people. And it wasn't directed at you, but that's the expression that I had. Because I also want them to see that part of integrity is understanding the effect that we have on other people and taking responsibility for, you know, our citizenship within the society of our house.
Mm.
But I'm a big proponent of, I mean, can we all just imagine if we were raised in this prim and proper and sanitized environment where people don't do human stuff, what would we start to believe about ourselves when human stuff does come up? In some ways, I'm just very grateful that my parents were as confused as they were about raising me because that that was I got to see that and got to love them so completely through that and get to a place inside of me that I don't have any insecurities about myself as a father because I don't have any judgments about my parents and what they did. And frankly, I love that they were honest at times when they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I think it's totally okay to go, I really don't know what to do, guys. I have no idea what's going on. Because often the I don't know is the invitation for spirit to show you.
Mm.
That part of you that thinks that you're supposed to know when you don't is not your friend. That's the one that is the source of our self-judgment and the source of our desire to control. You don't need to know the answer because the high self has already put in motion all the experiences that you need to have in order to complete this. So you don't have to worry. There's already a DJ playing the music. You just got to worry about dancing and enjoying yourself. Maybe not stepping on people's feet while you're doing it.
That was great. Thanks, Jeffrey. I appreciate it. Very valuable.
A pleasure.
Mm.
Um, Lolly, are you new? I just want to give new people a little. I can't hear you. Are you new to this and all of this?
Yes, so I'm Ronnie and I'm with my mom, Lolly,
Oh,
and I've been
cool.
on for about 3 times now.
Oh,
And
cool.
mom's the other day she listened in.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, why don't you go? Because you're new.
Okay. Uh, I'm visiting my mom, and my half sister has schizophrenia,
Hmm.
and she's now in another home. And we visited her the other day. And after our visit, my mom had questions just around if she did the right thing, placing her in a home, which I believe we did, and she's getting the care. Well, you're here. She's 44 years old, and and my mom was kind of, oh, did I do the right thing? I said, you know what, mom, we can get on the call with Jeffrey, and I'm sure he's going to have something very profound to say about that around
No
schizophrenia.
pressure. Uh,
And anything that comes through around schizophrenia, or even to give my mom comfort in the decisions she's made, because I feel there's a lot of guilt, could be a lot of guilt around that as a parent, I can imagine, and even as a family member.
yeah. So, so a couple things. I mean, even before talking about what I've observed with schizophrenia in terms of the energetic levels, uh, I think in terms of decision making. all we can do is do the best that we can with what we know. And when we get better information, we can do the best we can with what we know then, right? So I think for me, the I guess the art of decision making is the ability to connect into the self that is transcendent, the one that's inside. So the art would be, how am I tuning in to all the various parts of me and really listening versus something that's just intellectual. So really tuning into myself. I would say the science of decision making is understanding all the influences that are around me. So understanding that am I being uh, projected upon? Is there some kind of a societal judgment or something that's impacting me? It's understanding all the static in the channel and all the things that are interfering with me just listening to me. Yeah. So that's to me the art and the science of decision making. Now, if you have a doubt, I think it's less about, for me, did I make the right decision versus was I in complete integrity with myself when I made the decision? Because ultimately, the right or the wrong decision, I mean, you're not God. You're not going to know that answer. You don't, I mean, in many ways, I always thought judgment was like trying to do something above our pay grade because we just don't have enough information to judge anybody or anything. All we can do is the best we can with what we know. So, in that sense, I look at the process of decision making as just, can I get real honest and in integrity with what I know? And can I make a decision that aligns with me in my heart? And if you did that, there's really nothing to regret because that same integrity can have you shift it later if something else it needs to happen or you get more information.
Can I ask
And
something there? How can one know? I'm thinking of my mom and myself even that integrity or that
Mhm.
decision is actually coming from a place and not from fears and not from an emotional standpoint.
Well, we
You know,
can't look, we can't know in the absolute sense, so we cultivate an ability to clear the static in the channel, which is called in our area, it would be doing the spiritual exercises because that tunes us into a level that is transcendent of the ebbs and flows of our karma. So that gives us a reference point for something that is not just the ping pong game of your karma, right?
Mhm.
The other one is things like you can do freeform writing. You just vomit out all the unconscious stuff that might be influencing you and just write and write and write and write and write and then burn it because you're just clearing it out because you want just some silence with yourself. See, I don't think, see, we look at the decisions and the big inflection points in our life as some kind of affliction, like, oh, this was put on me and now I have this burden. I actually think of it as a very sacred process. Whatever we're going through was perfectly curated just for us so that we could complete and go home to God. So for me, I take that sacredly and I go, well, I just don't want any junk interfering with me enjoying this sacred moment. So it's like if you're listening to a beautiful prayer or something and you've got the lawnmower going on outside, you're like, oh, I'm just going to be real present with this prayer, but you got the lawnmower going on outside and you're not going to be present. So for me, I don't focus on making the right decision because I know that the right decision will appear before me in the absence of static in the channel. Ask and it shall be given. It's just it's so immediate spiritually. What gets in the way of that is all of our beliefs and all of our thoughts. So that's why you do the freeform writing. Self-forgiveness is a big one. I forgive myself for judging myself as or for. And then I would even go inside and be as the person. Just I forgive myself for judging myself as schizophrenic. I forgive myself for judging because the truth of the matter is, if you're caring for somebody with schizophrenia, it very well may be that that person cared for you when you had schizophrenia in a past life, and you're just returning the favor. That's right. We've been all of it. And the only way you're going to see schizophrenia in your life is if you have karma with schizophrenia. That's kind of how it works. So the first place to start is working it inside of you. And one thing that really takes the pressure off me is there are a whole lot of life experiences that are fixed by the high self and the soul before birth. You're going to go through this. Something like a mental illness could be one of them. And it's like there's nothing you could do. It's like we always assume that because from our idiosyncratic, individualized perception, it looks chaotic, that somehow it wasn't orchestrated. But if you talk to a good statistician or look at the field of probabilities, you will understand that there's a very finite amount of possibility in a life based on where you're born, what you do. And that field of probability could be called karma, and the space between those barriers is called choice. Now, ultimately, for me, the grace is tuning into the level that is transcendent of that, because then the limitations of this level become irrelevant. And I've heard John Rogers say the only grace is loving God. So in a sense, the way to transcend all of this is to tune into the soul level and connect into the soul level that is also in her. And then it becomes, I'm answerable to her soul. I'm not answerable to the personality.
My internet.
I know.
It's there's some noise. Oh, I'm answerable to, I hope that's addressed. I'm answerable to her soul rather than her personality. So it's less about what feels right, because our feelings are often wrong. It's more about what tests inside. It's more of a peaceful knowing rather than a reactive feeling. And it may be that you learn something later that goes, oh, this isn't schizophrenia. She's simply accessed into a part of the low astral, and there's energetic stuff she can do to close that off, and then she's not schizophrenic anymore. Look, schizophrenic is just a word that practitioners use because it makes it easier to come up with standardized interventions that handle people who deviate from societal norms. It's not a wrong or a right. It is functional. It is what people use to manage behavior. And the fact that she may have a chemical imbalance in her brain, karma dictates chemicals in the brain too. So it's like, could I have done something better? What makes you think she didn't make an agreement to have schizophrenia so she could clear that I'm sure she's clearing a lot of karma through schizophrenia. And at the same time, moving to the point about what schizophrenia is, most of Western medicine, and that includes psychology, is focused on groupings of symptomology rather than causality. So people call schizophrenia characterized by a set of symptoms, and then you diagnose as schizophrenic. And that's just the way that they look at it. You go to something like Chinese medicine or other forms of medicine, they're gonna group it based on causality. Now, I'm not saying one is better or worse than another, but you don't necessarily get cause in a spiritual sense or in an energetic sense from a diagnosis of schizophrenic. Like, for example, when I volunteered at the Midnight Mission in downtown LA and feeding some people who are probably diagnosed as schizophrenic and talking to themselves, I see entities around them that they're talking to. So does that mean they're schizophrenic, or does that mean they have a psychic capability that they were never taught how to manage?
Yeah.
They're t So it's like, they're they're schizophrenic. Sure. From a societal perspective, the best way for us to manage that person's behavior that deviates from what we consider typical is to diagnose them as schizophrenic, because then we can attach billing codes to that and we can attach care protocols to that. And everything is for the convenience of society, which is fine. But at the same time, you can be working with those same people and you can just ask for the light. And I've actually worked with people where I bring in a light column, or spirit brings in a light column, and I see the entities scatter, and then they just calm right down, and then they're just eating their food.
Mhm. Is that a choice, Jeffrey? And my mom and I have discussed that because my mom and I have wanted to try different modalities and just different paths, as you're talking acupuncture and more Eastern. And she has not been open and receptive. And what I've shared with my mom, I think on a soul level, for whatever reason she chose this,
Yeah,
she's not choosing that. And so
exactly.
that
I've not been I've not been very effective at controlling other people's behavior. I don't know if you have, but when people don't want to do stuff, they often don't do it.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay. And there's an intelligence to that too, because I'm not sitting with their high self or the karmic board going, this is what they've got to do this lifetime. That's not that's not my pay grade. So I don't have a judgment on it. Now, you go, well, then maybe I'm powerless to do it. Well, that's not true, because I just told you that you could do self-forgiveness as her inside of you. You can visualize the light going around her and clearing whatever this is. You can even, I've even had moments where it was healing to me to almost send light surgically. So a person is having a physical issue. I might do research on the brain and identify the parts of the brain that are overactive or out of balance, and I'll literally visualize the light going in and healing various parts of the brain, and the Christ holding the brain and all that kind of stuff. It was really, I mean, I remember when my son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. It's very mild. We started reading about potential blocks caused by I don't know, heavy metals. Like there's all these different theories, but like there's some lack of communication between left and right brain that it has to kind of like wire around, or there's some block. So I literally did a graphic where I had like the spirit, I had a cross of golden light right in the center of the brain at the spot where where the books were saying the block was, and I would look at it every day and just send light to his brain. Now, most people wouldn't even know that he is diagnosed, and he's been taken out of the program at school for people who have autism because his social, the evolution of his way of interacting with people has been such that we intervened early enough that he's basically like, people don't know that he's autistic apart from certain awkward behaviors or autism spectrum. So there's a way that absolutely, obviously, if I have a son coming in with that stuff going on, I've got karma with that stuff going on. And I know a lot of people who I would consider some of my closest friends. I would say top three closest friends, four or five closest friends, at least one of them I would say is likely on the spectrum. E- So I obviously have that karma to be close to people, and I seem to have a gift actually with connecting with people who have that, because I cheat, because I use intuition to know what's going on behind the scenes that they can't express. So they might say half of what they're feeling, and I'll just fill in the rest. I find it very easy and pleasurable. In fact, communicating with them is sometimes easier than communicating with typical people, because typical people try to bullshit me a lot. So I look at that and I go, did me looking at that picture do anything? Did me doing that? I have no idea, but I know that I cleared stuff inside of me. And if I'm bringing anything to the table in any interaction, that is one more thing I'm distracting myself with, other than loving the God and the person in front of me. So what's within my control? What's within my level of concern? I can do the healing work inside of me. And so I can heal so in your case, you can heal the schizophrenic person inside of you. Because guess what? We have it all inside of us. Everything that we experience is inside of us. We have it all in there. So there's a schizophrenic person inside of you who's refusing to do Eastern medicine, doing that whole thing, and you can work with her and help her heal inside of you. So at least you're not carrying one around. That one that's out there is enough. You don't have to carry around one that's really having a tough time inside of you. She can be free, she can be joyful, she can be healed inside of you. And that doesn't cost you anything other than taking a little bit of time, closing your eyes and going inside.
Thank you.
I mean, sometimes I'll even, I'll in the spiritual exercises, chanting the mantras and all that, I'll bring that tone through them inside of me. I'll just see it washing over them, this beautiful golden light and this vibration of the sound current. It's so healing to me. And you go, oh, am I trying to help the other person? I don't even know anything about people outside of me because I've only had experiences in here. If I really want to connect with somebody outside of me, I'm going to have to leave this solipsistic structure called the human consciousness and go into the ocean of love and mercy, and then I'm connected with everyone. And I don't have to settle for this proxy of a connection through the imagined relationships with other people. I want the real deal. I want to be one with everyone. So that's what I would say about the schizophrenia. And yeah, it is funny to see how it plays out. And if somebody's, it's like some part of you, if you really look in the depths of your being, will know if something's on track. And I've seen drug addicts that I've been feeding food to and known that what they were doing is exactly what they contracted to do. So some part of me just knows, hey man, apparently crack was that's what you came in to do. You came in to do the crack thing. And I'm just going to love you through that. And if you choose to leave the crack thing and go to something else, I'm going to love you in that too. And loving people with that kind of regardlessness and unconditionality is so healing. It's like I said earlier, my not judging my parent or my getting beyond the judgment of my parents gives me the freedom to be whatever parent I am. You're giving the space for your sister to be the way she is, or the whatever behavior to be the way it is, gives you the freedom to have your crazies. That which you give, you receive. It's so immediate. That's why judgments are like a prison, because soon as we judge, we're subject to that judgment. And as soon as we forgive, we partake in that forgiveness.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything you want to add
Yeah,
or
thank
ask?
you.
Yeah. Thank you so
All right.
much. Thank you.
My pleasure. God bless you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Uh, Judy.
Hi, Jeffrey. I'm Judy Pendleton, and I haven't asked a question before, and it's really my question. What is the question? I, I'm I think I'm caught in this syndrome of wanting to get it right, the question. And what I'd like to experience is flow and just being really okay um, in not knowing. I
Could you be more specific about the it and the right? Like what is the it that you're trying to get right, and what would getting it right look like?
I want to get. Yeah, good question. I love your questions. um, there's a part of me in rebellion. I'm taking a bunch of courses all at once. I'm teaching one, And
Okay.
and you were talking with someone about overwhelm, which is a word in my personal dictionary, I'd like to just take that word out of it. I don't like that word. Like, I'm not comfortable with it. Um, I got this idea of being able to do that because my mom had a dictionary that the word can't wasn't in it.
Like she literally cut out the word can't.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Um, and it was, that was a gift to me, because then what I did in its place was, well, if I don't know how, but if I did know how. So those are
Yeah, I
all great
think
questions.
I agree. Shifting from I feel overwhelmed or I am overwhelmed, even worse, to I don't yet know how this is going to work, but I'm
Yeah.
really open to for God to show me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been helpful. The times when I really just am present with what I'm doing, with the thing in front of me, um, are clear, and the clutter of everything else that might be on a list isn't there. And how do I just well, I keep getting the word trust. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of dancing around with this.
Yeah, so you have a part of you that really likes control.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right?
I think so.
Yeah. No, I think that, well, there's a part of a lot of people that really likes control. And if you don't think that's right, ask them if they're real neutral about this t coming Tuesday and who gets
uh,
elected president. I think people have a lot of concerns about control in that regard. My experience is, I guess I have more of an ecological or like an ecologist's view of it. Uh, there are parts of our consciousness that are going to run certain things, and we can start to shift habits. But if you came in with a part of you that seeks control or that creates to-do lists or organizational structures and then kind of has to tick them and it kind of fulfills a part of you, that might be very ingrained in like your basic self, you know? It's not, I think the real difficulty is more that we identify with that and we say, oh, that's me, that's how I am, versus I'm soul, and that's a process that likes to work itself out in my life. But for me, it's more like it creates more problems for me to try and force myself out of inherent behavior patterns than it does if I just observe the pattern and watch for the systemic causes or how it all works. It's not, it's so tempting to judge based upon an ideal that we see in other people. So, what will often happen is we'll observe another's behavior and project a bunch of idealized thoughts like, oh, that person has it so together and they're so relaxed in the whole thing. I've worked with a lot of people, and it may just be that I have like a karma to attract to work with me, people who have issues or something. But I've never met anybody that, quote, has it figured out. I don't know if you have, but maybe there's one person, like the one person who has it all together in the world. I don't, I don't know that's what this world is for. And I've met high-powered CEOs who have less of an understanding of what's going on than janitors and custodial staff, people who volunteer at the mission. It's not, it's all just fulfilling the life plan and the karmas and the things that are set forth. And yet, from our perspective, we look and put them on a pedestal and think that somebody else has it figured out. So then we say, oh, well, I need to behave more like so and so, meaning this thought form in your mind of who you think behaves better than you. And then you start trying to force your behaviors into that. And in the process, you over-identify with the behavior level and you create some karma through self-judgment. And on top of that, it uses a tremendous amount of energy. I find it more useful to be hyper realistic with our behavior level and our consciousness. Like I've worked with people who want to start a business that has nothing to do with, it's like, do you like doing that? Well, okay. They say, I want to do this. I'm going to be this. And I go, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Do you like doing A, B, C, D, and E, all of which are associated with that? And they say no. And I say, okay, so what we've discovered is you don't actually want to be that. You just like the idea of it. So many people are living outside of the integrity of their behavior. I mean, I see people, one philosophy I've started to adopt more and more that, I have a friend, she is probably the best delegator I've ever met in my whole life. And if she's on the call, she definitely knows who she is. Um, but I'm just learning more and more. If it's not something I'm good at, I just need to outsource it. There's these people who have all this pride. They go, oh, well, I should really, my father was able to do his own taxes. I should do my own taxes. And I just look at it and go, that is ridiculous. I would screw up my taxes. I am so grateful to pay somebody to just handle that. Every dollar I spend feels like an I love you to me. I think it's one thing that I just admire is the people in my life who openly admit and laugh about their limitations, their challenges. Like they just say, you know what? I'm not good at this thing. I may get good at it later, but I'm not good at it now. So don't ask me to do it. I will, in fact, screw that up. I will, I will make a mess. I just, and I also realize like sometimes you have to teach people, sometimes people don't get the information they need to get the lesson. So they like, oh, clean this up. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm not going to clean it up right. You're going to have to redo that. So I go do it. And then, oh my God, you did it all wrong. I was like, I feel like I told you that I was,
For me, it's cooking.
I think everybody has it. And then so for me, I love cooking. And yet I know people who would burn salads somehow. Seriously. It's if we can just understand that our behavior is not who we are, our thoughts are not who we are. If we can understand that this is just the ecosystem of karma behavior stuff that we're responsibly and lovingly shepherding this lifetime, we wouldn't have such a conflict inside of us. And it may be as simple as a reframing because it's like, why do I always do that? Why am I such a blank? Becomes, huh, I wonder why that behavior seems to be so ingrained there. I wonder what's driving that behavior and what inside of me seems to want that to happen. You see the difference?
Mhm. It it occurred to me this morning that I really don't haven't spent quality time with my basic self for a while.
Yeah. And if, yeah. So the control pattern and the sense of insecurity when things are out of place in a room, and like, that sense of needing to, I can't relax until I tick that thing off my list. If hypothetically that were coming from your basic self, it would definitely help for you to spend more of that quality time loving that part of you and creating a sense of safety and belonging. And I think, you know, in earlier phases of my life, I had this notion of like, oh, well, I'm spiritual, therefore I shouldn't have this need, or I shouldn't want that, or I shouldn't think about that, or what, you know, it was funny. You know, my wife was telling me she does Vedic astrology, and she was telling me that the chart of a murder and the chart of a saint are extremely similar, meaning the base level difficulties and karmas and challenges, the ones that create a saint and a great teacher and a holy person, are often real difficult. So we have these judgments like, oh, well, when you're spiritual, you don't have to deal with your karma. Actually, I tend to think there's a lot of opportunity for spiritual growth in the ebbs and flows of our karma and in the challenges and then the difficulties. So when I said before, everybody kind of doesn't have it figured out and everybody's a bit of a mess, that also means everybody has ample opportunity and windows for greater transcendence, learning, and growth. And in that process, they start to become more solically referenced rather than ego referenced. And from the perspective of the soul, there's nothing wrong with your basic self wanting to control stuff and fix stuff and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And you may find you're just eating the wrong foods, or that you need, or there's an herb that would help. You may find there's so many. It, if we go hyper spiritual and say, oh, I'm only going to focus on the chin up, we're not really being responsible for our 10% level at the level we could. And the key is just not to over identify. How do we care for the body without over identifying with the body? And to me, sometimes when people are so resistant, it's because they know that they have a deep temptation or over identification pattern with the body that they're just simply avoiding. And avoiding is not the same thing as transcending. And I see, or clearing for that matter. I've talked to people who talk about how, oh yeah, when I was young, I used to get angry and now I don't get angry and it's just so great. But I can, but because I have this inconvenient at times sensitivity, I hear them screaming at me during the conversation. I wish people would just understand that disassociation and avoidance are not the same as clearing and not the same as healing. And so I'll work with people often who'll be like, I don't know, I'm a very happy person. I was like, really? You know, and you talk through it, you go, all of you are happy, all of that. And then when we finally dig in, they're like super angry, go through the whole thing, and they finally swim through that sea of junk and start to actually process it and clear it. And then they come out the other side and they go, oh my God, I'm so happy. And at that point, it's true. And a lot of their physical problems go away because now all of a sudden they're not stuffing their emotions with foods, and they're not creating blocks in the energy flow in their body that result in joint issues and all the other stuff. That, oh, I feel better in my physical body than I've ever felt, because guess what, like, it's all connected. So I'm a big proponent of be hyper realistic and start accepting what's actually going on in the consciousness, which could be I'm real angry, I'm not happy, all that stuff. And that opens the door for the spirit to come and assist us in transcending that and clearing that. And it's like this commitment inside of me that I won't even say, I won't say I love you or I like you even to a person unless I truly have that inside of me. I've truly worked that process. I'm not doing performance art anymore. That's just not, I'm not doing performance art spirituality. That's just not what I'm doing anymore. So that when I say I love you to a person, they feel it to the tips of their toes. They know it, and I know it, and I feel it. So I think it is a very wonderful thing to take care of the basic self and take care of all the parts of you, but not from a perspective of, oh, why are you trying to, why can't you just let go? Why can't you be spiritual like that? Why can't you? We always think that our spiritual curriculum is something that we do when we finally handle this pesky body. Our spiritual curriculum might be the body. My experience is our spiritual curriculum is whatever God puts in front of us.
Mm.
So I think there's a huge opportunity to just love the part of you that wants to control like that. And don't declare it unspiritual or declare it unworthy or any of that other stuff. So the kind of acceptance and joy that you have maybe in the embracing of all the parts of you that are not expressing what you've decided is evolved and spiritual. Start to fall in love with your shadow a little bit.
Mm. Thank you. The shadow nailed it. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you. All right, it's 9 a.m. Um, Alyssa, I'm sorry I didn't get to you next time. Okay. Do you want to put your name in for just put your something in the light?
Sure, just light to my spiritual exercises and thank you so much. God bless you. Catch you later.
All right. Thank you, everyone. The blessings already are.